All right, financial coach Brian Binkholder wanted to speak to you about life insurance. Many people have questions on life insurance, the different sorts of life insurance, what are their uses, did I get ripped off buying this thing, did I make a good decision, is this a bad decision? There's a lot of fallacies about this, and I'm not even going to be able to address them all here in this video, but I'm going to do my best to make this real simple to kind of give you an overview of different sorts of life insurance. So let's start at the very beginning. Why do we buy life insurance? We buy life insurance to protect against a loss. That's primary reason number one. And so in that case, if we're buying against a risk of loss, then we buy term insurance. Now, term insurance is basically, people will say it's like renting life insurance. Cool, great, whatever. You buy it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25, 30 years. All you're doing is you're paying for this coverage, and you're trying to get the death benefit that you need and get the most death benefit for what you're willing to pay. For instance, a $2 million policy on a 35-year-old for 20 years will be, let's say, something in the nature of $75 a month for $2 million. Now, of course, as you go on in life, if you reach the end of that time period, let's say 20 years is up and you haven't died, then the prices skyrocket and you're probably not going to keep that policy. But you bought it for a reason. So say, for instance, you have kids in the house. You want to make sure that they make it through college and all of their expenses and needs are met and everything else. That's a good thing. That's where you use term insurance. Let me give you some other examples right over here. You use it to cover debts. So that's the number one reason. You start there, debts. So you calculate all your debts. I've got $200,000 in debt with my house and everything else. Great. Then you need that coverage. Your next step is your debts plus income. So what happened if you passed away? How would your spouse maintain after you were gone? So this is now, let's say you had $200,000 worth of debt. So now maybe you earn $50,000 a year and you want to have 5 years worth of income taken care of for your spouse if something occurred. So 5 times 50 is $250 plus the 200 there. So you would buy $450,000 worth of term coverage. So that covers the debts, plus it has some income for a few years afterwards. Now your next step is, maybe you've got enough money in your budget, now you move to covering all your debts and then your spouse living off the principal. That's something I do in my own life. I look at my situation and I say, okay, if something happened to me, I want everything taken care of and my wife to just be able to live off the interest off of investments. And then finally, there's another great route, which is an endowment where you cover all of these things, but then you leave more money to your beneficiaries. Insurance is really cheap, and so term insurance is a great route for this. Now, that's term insurance. Very prevalent. People use that a lot, and that's good. Also, there's some people, though, that buy this thinking that they're going to do it cheaper and then try to save money, and they don't save money. So you use term for what it's supposed to be used for. That's these things here. Now, whole life is something that's very big. It was actually created because if you can see my little chart here, it used to be that your death benefit was here, let's say $100,000, and as you got older, the death benefit went down because it was called decreasing term. Life insurance gets more expensive as you get older. So people didn't really like that. So there was a cry and a call for whole life insurance, insurance that covered your whole life. 1862, a company by the name of Nautilus Life started whole life coverage. That's New York Life today. They started whole life insurance, and what it was is you're paying more money, let's say for this $100,000, over here on term, that would maybe cost you, $15 a month, and over here on whole life, that's going to cost you $100 a month. Well, what happens is that extra money goes into a cash account that grows, and over time, the insurance company, the money that they have at risk goes down because your cash accumulation is growing, and that's how this policy lasts your whole entire life. in a reasonable standpoint. Now, the thing about whole life policies is you've got to pay the same amount. So whatever premium you decide on when you take out the policy, you've got to continue that. There's no changing it, no adjusting it. It is what it is. So that can be a good thing or that can be a bad thing. Now, the good part about all of that is whole life has very strong guarantees. You'll see the guarantees in the policy. It will tell you for sure where you're going to be at different points down the road. Again, that's very nice to have. There's some trade-offs for that. The thing that I personally don't care about whole life for, I don't care for it the way it's sold many times. I think it's inappropriately used in a lot of cases, is that number one, not being able to change the payment amount. Number two, it's sold to a lot of individuals when they're younger and they probably should be using term. Number three is you don't know what your returns are going to be. Each year, you have no idea what your returns are going to be on that life insurance, on that whole life, because it's based on, at the end of the year, the company says, okay, out of all the people we insure, how many people died? Okay, well, was that more or less than what we expected? What were our company returns on our portfolio? Now they put all of that together and they announce a dividend at the end of the year. Now I have a historical dividend chart, which I'll have right underneath this video, which will show you it's a truth in numbers from all the different whole life carriers, what their actual policies have done. Most of them end up being, after all their cost and fees and everything else, about 5% is the highest you'll see. So, okay, that's conservative investment. You have the life insurance with it. All right. I just don't personally care for it, and I don't think it fits a lot of people's situations of what they need. It's more of an antiquated and older item. Now, I know I'll catch flack from that, but that's okay. It's just my opinion from evaluating products.